All right, Rohan Patel, comic book movie. Hey
Hey,
Ryan, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm a huge admirer, man. I have so many of your the art of books, from Avengers to Far From Home. So it's a real great honor to talk to you.
Oh, great to meet you too, man.
So I just wanted to get inside your head a little bit, and because the whole process is you're creating all these characters, like so you have so many of them behind you that they become instantly iconic, and then they're in merchandise, they're in all the movies, and they're all over the place. So how's that process sort of start? Like, how early do you get um, like Kevin or anyone coming up to you and be like, "Hey, we need to work on this and have it done by this time"?
It's different on every project. For the most part, we're involved very early. It kind of depends on what's leading each project, whether they want to have some initial concepts in place because they feel like that's an important component that really needs to get locked down before they can move forward with an outline, or they'll have an outline and they say, let's get going. It kind of depends on each project. Sometimes, individualistic keyframes are more important. In a case where we may be working on a sequel and the characters are already sort of figured out, we might get the notion like, okay, we got to do a bunch of keyframes to really show what the next story is going to be instead of really doing a bunch of character designs, right? So it's different with every show, but it's always as it's always pretty early. In the case with What If, I was kind of involved very early. Essentially, as Brian was pitching the notion of using J.C. Linedecker as a stylistic reference, I was kind of just like set off drawing, trying to figure that out and see how we could use that reference point to create some compelling and iconic and heroic characters.
And you mentioned, yeah, JC Lineig. I remember, I think Brian was talking about him as well when I spoke with him. But when you're redesigning some of the characters, um, and the instances where they weren't able to get the original voice actors back, like with Steve Rogers and with Nat and Bruce Banner, like you revert him to like the not the Ed Norton Hulk. You used the obviously the Mark Ruffalo one. So were there instances where you were like, let's update them a little bit, or let's stylistically tweak them because, or make it more like what if versus something just what we've seen before?
A lot of the fun of this show is the idea of it being in the multiverse and the fact that you're starting from the main MCU timeline and characters that you might know and love, but that there's that specific sort of what if, you know, kicker puts you down a specific timeline that allows you to really understand something that's different from the MCU. So in a lot of cases, we were designing things, in the case with Doctor Strange, what if the what if that leads to an evil Doctor Strange. So the idea of being able to play off of the more MCU version of Doctor Strange versus the versus the evil meant that you could, the design direction became very overt and clear that we were gonna have to deviate from what people know and love about the characters in order to tell that story. I think there's specific instances like the Hulk where we're trying to do the Hulk as he appeared in the Avengers and tweak the hair a little bit so it feels a little bit more like the Incredible Hulk version. But all that stuff is still filtered down through most of the times. What's different in this universe as a result of that what if scenario, and also how can we represent that JC Linedecker style and make it feel illustrative and heroic and idealized.
Yeah. And so like I'm just having like seen your like having your books. You use so many different designs just for like single characters. Like we've seen so many different Scarlet Witch costumes over the year before what we saw in WandaVision. So for this show, you have like so much creative, like kind of do whatever you want. How many different variants did you like really go through?
It's interesting because if you take like that Doctor Strange, for example, the idea of doing an evil Doctor Strange, like to me, that means I instantly think, oh, I could do like 200 things with that, right? I could make him evil in 200 different ways. And the notion of going down that road with where the story was with him sort of taking in other entities to become more powerful, to me, it sets in motion like 10 or 15 designs that you have to really nail before you can, or you have to do those designs before the filmmakers can kind of say, well, it should be here, right? That's amongst those designs. And that's sort of like how, you know, how monstrous, how grotesque, how desiccated, how emaciated, how, you know, how dark should the costume be? How pointy should his chin be? How, you know, how evil do we really make him? And because he was taking in those characters, how representative of that power should his main look be? Should he have tentacles around his arms? Should he have, you know, and essentially those roads that we went down ended up becoming more useful for like how he appeared at the very end of that episode, where he has clearly lost control of all this power within him and can't hold it in anymore. But yeah, it's all of that is to say it's a very similar process to what we do in the films. We're still exploring as many things as possible to sort of give the filmmakers options, feel like we have explored, you know, almost gone down every avenue we possibly can in order to allow them to make the best decision possible for what the visual is going to be.
Yeah. And so like, where do you generally sort of, because you have so many, you have like 20, 30 years, I mean, not 20, 30 years, you have like 100 years of worth of comics, and almost like 20, 30 years of movies and stuff that you can draw inspiration from. For most of your characters, where are you sort of looking? Like are you looking at a combination of each? And or is it sometimes where you're like, someone names a character like Captain America, you exactly know how it's going to look like, or they name someone like Spider-Man, and it's like, oh, I have to think about this a little more. But so how's that work?
I mean, I kind of have to think about all of them. I'd like to think I have good instincts for this stuff by now, but it's still a process. I feel like so much of what I'm describing about like doing those different versions is a process for me too. Doing the art, like if I'm working on a version of Cap for something, or I'm working on like Peggy Carter, I can go down a road that while I'm doing that art, it makes me think of 3 other roads to explore. And then doing those, once I've explored those, it goes down, you know, 3 more. So I end up, you know, feeling like that's the core of the process, really. It's trying to look at the story that they're trying to tell, what's going to be the most useful components of the design, and then looking for whatever source of reference that executes those. Sometimes it's stuff in the comics. In the case with What If, it was more usually about doing a derivation of stuff in the MCU films and tweaking it to match the story, run it through the style, the Leyendecker style, and essentially just pitch ideas that exist within those realms.
I got you. And so like, I don't want to keep you too long, but I assume since you've been working on What If, like I assume you've worked on it like at least 2 years before the pandemic and everything, and because it takes a while to animate. But so like, I'm assuming you're working on future projects, and I know you can't say that much, but I guess I just want to ask, like, if you're working on season 2 or Spider-Man in your future, or X-Men or Fantastic Four, or anything you can say would be just really cool, I guess.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I can't really speak.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Future. I mean, I think we're continuing to work on What If, and excited about the future of the multiverse, and just seeing, you know, for me, I don't know the plans of where everything's going to go. Really, I know some things, but within the context of the multiverse, it just has such limitless possibilities that I'm excited to see where it all goes.
Awesome, man. Well, I can't wait to see it, and I'm just looking forward to the rest of the season. But thank you so much for your time, Ryan. I really appreciate it.
No worries, man. Great to meet you.
It's good to meet you.